Thank you for joining us and carving out the time to celebrate 100 years of biodynamics with us and to join us with Helmy Abouleish. Welcome to the room, Helmy. It's an honor to be in the room with you. Helmy is CEO of SEKEM, an initiative in Egypt that has literally turned the desert into a farm that feeds thousands of people. And it's more than a farm. I love the term of actually saying it's an economy of love. It's a place where they've taken biodynamics to fruition and really shown what's possible with biodynamics. And we're going to get to learn and hear from Helmy today as he shares that journey with us. His parents started at SEKEM in 1970. Is it, Helmy, when was it?
Yes, 1977.
1977, that's what I thought, 1977. So that's around the time my parents started their official organic farm. My dad had a little acreage in 1971, and in around 1976, he actually bought his bigger acreage where we started to farm. So it feels like there's a little bit of a kindred spirit there with that start date with what you've done in Egypt. And Helmy is also president of Demeter International, the Biodynamic Federation, and his roots are deep and wide in biodynamics. And he's going to share a presentation with us today. And we're also going to be looking at the economy of love and looking at how biodynamics is part of a solution to planetary health and planetary well-being, global regeneration, poverty, food security, and so much more than that. Because one thing we know for sure is the people in this room are already vibrating in a place of love. You are here because you care about the earth and you care about the food that we're eating. You care about the health of the planet and the health of your family and friends. And anytime we can have a conversation about this and deepen into this, and I think the more, it's like charging our batteries, right? It's like charging a battery so that we can go out and share with more passion and more direction and more intention. So with that, Helmy, welcome to Heart and Soil. Welcome to this community. I'm just curious, before we jump into your presentation, Helmy, what does biodynamics mean to you?
Yeah, thank you first for inviting me, and I'm very happy to speak to you, especially this year as we are celebrating our 100 years of biodynamics in the world. And biodynamics obviously is the base of everything we have developed here in SEKEM. Biodynamic is, for me, the most regenerative agricultural system in the world. It is caring for nature, society, the individual human beings, potential unfolding, but at the same time for a new economy, and of course for a very, very thoughtful relationship with nature in all its dimensions and kingdoms. And I'm happy to share with you indeed a presentation, and I'm just asking, can I share my screen, or will you want to move it from your side?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's do that. Let's jump into the presentation, and then we'll have some conversation, maybe back and forth throughout the presentation, Helmy, and then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end.
Okay, so I will speak to you today and tonight about biodynamic agriculture and about what we call the economy of love as a model for a food system for our future. And I'm very happy to do this in this particular year, but I also in this particular time, because we just now are celebrating our first biodynamic conference in Africa, where we had over 150 participants from 12 African countries and guests from the whole world. And we are still all inspired and in high spirits, let's say, because we could see that this is a system which is not only done for Europe, but really also working wonderfully in all countries of the world. And before I go into what we are doing at the moment and how biodynamic agriculture can be relevant for the whole world, let me share with you some information about Egypt, my home country. Now, Egypt is obviously a wonderful country, a big country, but Egypt also at the same time, which you can see on this picture, is a country which is the gift of the Nile, and hence, out of its huge area, only 4%, which are this 4% around the Nile, are inhabited by its population. Only 4% are arable land, and 96% are desert. And Egypt, over the last 100 years, saw an unbelievable growth of population, which has put us in front of a series of really serious challenges. You have to imagine that we are currently 110 million Egyptians with a very young population, and 100 years ago there were 7 million Egyptians in the same area, in the same country, along the same arable land area. And this means that we are obviously growing at a yearly rate of nearly 2.5 million people, which by itself is a new country, and which obviously puts a lot of problems to our government to create infrastructure and buildings and houses and schools and hospitals and so on for all this fast-growing population. And ultimately, of course, out of this wonderful big country, only 7 million acres are arable land, 7 million acres, which currently are managed by 7 million farmers, which leaves every farmer with an acre or less. And by itself, for all those of you who are farmers, you can imagine what does this mean to have to feed your whole family with 1 acre of land, even if you have 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 different crops over the year. It's always difficult. And at the same time, of course, which is very obvious from this picture, we, as the gift of the Nile, we are managing a certain quantity of water, which at the moment are about 55 billion cubic meters of water, which are coming every year through the Nile, which is one of the biggest rivers in the world, from Africa, 11 other countries to Egypt, and 55 billion cubic meters of water at this unbelievable consumption rate of every human being needing 3,000 liters of water per day for his food, can only feed 55 million Egyptians. And this means we at the moment are importing 50% of our food, with all the attached challenges of food security, food sovereignty, high prices, and so on. And beside all this, of course, Egypt is also impacted from all the other challenges the world is facing, whether it's biodiversity loss or the climate change. And Egypt, as the second most impacted country in the world from climate change, obviously has to adapt to this ever-growing danger of rising sea levels and many, many other things. And of course, by having said that 7 million farmers are living on 7 million acres, you can imagine that all their kids, which are many, 4, 5, 6 kids per family, are starting now to run away from their farms all over Egypt to the cities. And so we have hugely overpopulated cities with big slums. Cairo alone has 27 million people and is growing every day. So this as an introduction into the situation of Egypt was also already a challenge 47 years ago, when my father, who was living with us, the family in Austria, my mother, my sister, and myself, when he decided that as a born Egyptian, he wants to go back to Egypt to contribute in a meaningful way to a system change of agriculture, of education, of economy, and many, many other things. Was obviously something which people from the family, whether it was in Egypt or in Austria, didn't consider an easy task. A model for system change in such a very stressful situation, people considered a mission impossible, and nobody did really tell my father that he is on the right track, but nevertheless, he decided to start and base his model on biodynamic agriculture, which he, as a pharmacist, did not use in Austria or in any other place before as a farmer. But besides that, biodynamic was not ever used in Africa or in the Middle East, and everyone told him it's not going to work in the desert. He also was confronted with the situation that it was very clear to him that it's not only about agriculture and the new agricultural system, but as much as agriculture needed system change, the economic system needed system change. And he was dreaming then already from the bottom of his heart that we will be able to transfer this economic system to what he called اقتصاد المحبة, or economy of love. And I will speak about this a little bit more in detail later on. But you can imagine that, again, people did not believe that biodynamic is possible, but they also did not believe that an economy of love will ever be able to successfully compete in a very, very competitive market with many multinational and national companies in Egypt. But beside all this, beside biodynamics and beside economy of love, it was also his conviction that it's ultimately about human development. It's ultimately about unfolding the potential of people. And hence, everything in SEKEM, in his intentional community, should always serve human development and human development. And so, again, everyone told him this is the role of the government, this is not the role of a social entrepreneur, but he was clear that whether it's agriculture, whether it's economy, whether it is any kind of service, it must always focus on human development. And human development happens as an individual human development, but also in a community. And so he was also very clear that he wanted to create a learning, living organization, a community where people live and learn and work together and produce products which are in harmony with nature and the society in large. So as I told you, and as you can imagine, everyone said this is not going to happen. This is this is crazy. Against hence all odds, this miracle of SEKEM unfolded. A miracle where out of sand, stones, a huge desert area evolved over the last 47 years to a wonderful oasis where all kinds of crops are cultivated, where 2,000 people work, live, and learn together, and where today nearly 10,000 farmers all over Egypt follow biodynamic agricultural principles and methods to produce all kinds of crops, and to prove that biodynamic is capable not only of reclaiming desert, but also of cultivating Nile land, of achieving yields which are comparable with the yields of the agro-industry system, which use less water per crop, and which sequester tons and tons of carbon in their soils and trees, or avoid the emittance of CO2 in their compost making. And ultimately, of course, also that people will have, these people here have much, much better incomes and are really competitive with the products they produce, whether it's foodstuff or pharmaceuticals or textiles, which they sell 80% of it to the local market and where they compete with small multinational companies like Unilever or Nestle, and still are able of being market leaders in many of the segments. But at the same time, while this many thousand people work, produce biodynamic raw materials and process them to all these kind of products, there are hundreds of kids going to our SEKEM schools. There are 3,000 students going to our Leopolis University for Sustainable Development. And there, in these schools, in this university, it's really wonderful to see how we are able to unfold their potential through arts and community-based learning, through practical experience, and through all the services of integrative health and so on, which we are providing. But still, the question, of course, is this now a model for system change for the whole of Egypt? Is it scalable? And I can tell you that we are very optimistic about this. We are optimistic that it is scalable, actually. We are very happy to see that more and more of the international organizations, development organizations of the United Nations, for example, really are coming more and more in line with what we have found in our own 47 years of history. So whether it's, for example, let's take here the IPCC, which as they have issued in their report in 2019, has clearly stated that agriculture, which is currently one of the biggest contributors to climate change by emitting huge amounts of CO2 from their soils and trees, could at the same time be a very important part of the solution of climate change, and that there is a huge potential of sequestering carbon in our organic and biodynamic agricultural systems. So being really acknowledged as part of the solution by IPCC obviously gives us a lot of support and hope that others will follow this example. But we are also happy that, for example, the FAO in their report of 2023 have acknowledged something which is really contributing to a paradigm shift, which still needs to arrive with all the consumers and all the societies in the world, a paradigm shift in regard to whether organic and biodynamic farming are really more expensive agricultural systems producing more expensive food and agricultural products, or whether we just show them as more expensive because we hide and externalized costs in the agricultural system, which are related to health and water, climate change, and many other things. So I'm happy to tell you that even the FAO now currently has acknowledged that in our current agro-industry system, we are much more expensive than organic and biodynamic. And this, I think, is important to have in mind. Now, what did we do? And there is here now a quick description of this economy of love concept, which we have applied at SEKEM since 47 years, which from the one side, of course, is very much built on the certification of biodynamic agriculture for our food production. But at the same time, we are also developing already our own tools to make our supply chain much more transparent, to show to the consumers and to all the partners in the supply chain that who is doing what along the supply chain, who is getting what percentage of the added value, and how does these products which come from farms and go to final retail outlets to reach consumers, what is their impact on the environment, on the people. And the game changer was actually when then only some few years ago, we also recognized that we as biodynamic farmers are contributing with a lot of environmental and social ecosystem services. For example, that we, as I just mentioned, sequester tons and tons of carbon in our fields. And we are using this fact actually to calculate the CO2 sequestration or emission avoidance of our farmers and issue for them carbon credits, which are now another income stream for our farmers and enables them to sell their products at conventional prices in the local market, while they still have a much better income and obviously also contribute to the mitigation of climate change. And to do this, we have to fund this transition. We are funding it with new innovative models like carbon credit, voluntary carbon market, and carbon credit access for our farmers, like our own microcredit schemes, our own ethical bank, which we use to fund this transition of our farmers. And last not least, and I think the most important, of course, is education, education, education. It's all about creating awareness for the facts I'm just mentioning, but also educating our next generation in schools and in universities, our farmers, our consumers, our fellow citizens here with all this information. And ultimately, we obviously try to answer 4 questions for our responsible consumers in Egypt and all over the world. 4 questions which we believe any food system of the future have to answer. And this is the question number 1. What is the impact of any product on the shelf on the environment, whether it's in regard to its biodiversity impact or climate impact or water impact or whatever else. On the other side, it's also what's the impact of such a product on the potential unfolding of all the people involved, from the farmer to the consumer. Does such a product really contribute to the continuous learning of everyone involved? Or what is the impact of such a product on the whole of the society? How does it foster rural development and resilient rural development in our villages? And last not least, what's the real economic impact? What's the true cost of biodynamic farming? What's the really right price for these organic products which we are producing? So by using carbon credits, as I just mentioned before, by using the fact that every tree sequesters up to 33 kilos of CO2 per year, or every ton of compost can avoid 600 kilos of CO2 emissions, or every acre of land can sequester up to 1.5 tons of CO2 when it's managed in a biodynamic way. And that obviously these farmers using renewable energy sources do not contribute with emissions from their diesel generators and diesel water pumps and so on. So all this together could basically, if upscaled to the 7 million farmers of Egypt, make a huge impact. You have to imagine, from the one side, Egypt's agriculture, as every other agriculture in the world, currently is still emitting 22.7 million tons of CO2, which is nearly 10% of Egypt's overall emissions, but has the potential to sequester 47.5 million tons if they follow the same system we are applying. And this would set off 60% of Egypt's overall emissions, which would make out of our 7 million farmers climate heroes, each one of them, beside providing better food, beside improving their livelihoods. Because as I tried to explain, when a farmer sequesters up to 6 tons of CO2 per acre, and sells these certificates on the local voluntary carbon market, then he gets an additional income of 150 to 200 euros at a much too low price, but still at this price. And this is more than what he profits from most of the crops he can cultivate in Egypt on the 1 acre per year. So it would lead to better incomes. It would lead to healthier food. It would lead to the mitigation of climate change. And so we are really sure and optimistic that by following this path, we can contribute to climate change mitigation. We can contribute to system change in agriculture. And with a lot of enthusiasm, we have developed out of this model now a scaling of or upscaling of this economy of love agricultural system, which started in somewhere in 2018. Currently, we are in the third phase. We are now upscaling to 40,000 farmers, which hopefully until the end of next year will then sequester up to 1.5 million tons of carbon credits. And when we start the next phase, phase number 4, then for the next 3 years, and we reach really these 250,000 farmers, we would have reached 20% of Egypt's agricultural area. And by reaching 20%, we think it's starting to get system relevant. Critical mass is somewhere at 20%. And this is where we hope we can then also see that the whole system flips even without our involvement. Now, based on all this, we have put together for COP27 and for COP28, COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt and COP28 in Dubai, a joint call for action, together with many partners from different backgrounds, whether it's IFORM from the organic agricultural movement or the BFDI, the Biodynamic Federation, Demeter International, Regeneration International, or the World Future Council, the Club of Rome, the World Ethic Forum, and even the United Nations UNFCCC climate champions. We have got all of them behind a joint call for action where we call on decision makers and politicians to really help us to create a whole system, agricultural carbon credit standard, which then smallholder farmers all over the world can use to get access to a new funding, which will enable them to move from conventional agriculture to biodynamic agriculture. And we also call for better access to funding of this voluntary carbon market, and to acknowledging that agricultural carbon credits are of a totally different quality than renewable energy or other carbon credits, which currently are traded at very low prices. And we are at least now very happy that Egypt and Egypt's government has really supported our initiative. They have issued in the end of 2022 a decree with a voluntary carbon law. And based on this voluntary carbon law, now the Financial Regulatory Authority of Egypt has put together the African Carbon Exchange at the Egyptian exchange, so have given access to a platform on the Egyptian exchange to trade agricultural carbon credits to all the listed companies. And the listed companies on the Egyptian exchange are obviously multinationals and big Egyptian companies, which all have reporting obligations and which sooner or later will also start with offsetting their carbon footprint. Now, this is from the one side, Egypt. From the other side, we are happy that in the moment we are also starting to develop an international office of the Economy of Love standard. And we started now with 3 initiatives in India, reaching out to hundreds of thousands of farmers in India, with different initiatives in Tanzania and in Kenya, Brazil, and other countries of the world. And we are really very optimistic that with this idea, which basically is rectifying a wrong cost accounting, which always shows us as the expensive biodynamic farmers, we can help millions of farmers all over the world in different continents and different countries to move to biodynamic agriculture. There are, I have to also say, there are still many people who do not believe that this is going to be the way forward. They can't see that they believe that this is also a mission impossible, and that the current agricultural system will not move into this direction. But we, from the one side, are sure that the future is coming anyhow. The future will come out of crisis or out of enlightenment, but there is no way to continue in the way we are dealing with Mother Nature at the moment. And hence, we use a quote of our big African brother, Nelson Mandela, who once said very beautifully, "It always seems impossible until it's done." So in this spirit, we are continuing our drive for system change in the agricultural system, based on not only a new agricultural method, but really also a new economy and a focus on human development. And we believe that if this miracle was possible in Egypt, which I just described, then it's possible everywhere in the world. It needs a vision, it needs courage to move, to act on what we know, but with vision and courage, it's possible to be replicated anywhere. So, in this spirit, I'm looking forward to engage now in a discussion with you on how can this also be relevant in other countries of the world.
Yeah, Helmy, thank you so much for bringing us on that journey with SEKEM. It's really, really powerful. I mean, and I just want to be sensitive to, and there's a lot of diversity in this room. People who, when they hear about climate change, their hearts tighten, and whether they're totally on board with it or they're like questioning it. And I also know there's people in this room who are really cognizant and on board with the idea of carbon credits and that narrative. So what I really want to present for everybody listening to this and tuning into this is that there's such a powerful opportunity for us to come together in this space. Because one thing that's true is we all care about planetary health, and we all care about human health. And I think that is a really important place for us to come back to and to connect with in where we're at and where we're heading and how we're going to get there. How are we going to learn to collaborate more with nature? How are we going to learn to glean from SEKEM's journey of over the last 47 years, and how are we going to put into action what Helmy has just shared with us about the power of growing food in the middle of the desert and changing the lives of people who are participating in this venture, and not only just with growing food and healing the land, but also with healing their hearts and healing their relationships with their families and with their friends, in the way that they can grow food and provide food and clothes and so much more beyond that. So I honor your journey with SEKEM, Helmy, and I can't imagine what that's been like to have been just a little boy running around, probably barefoot on that soil and watching it come to life. So can you tell us what that was like when you really noticed that you were doing something special? Like when was that moment? What was that like? What did that feel like for you?
I was 16 years old when we came to Egypt 7 years ago, and I was caught by this vision my father had from the very first moment when he told us about it in Austria. I have since then never left this vision, and it has grown into my own blood system and my own personality. And I have to say, it is it's part of me as much as I'm part of SEKEM, and it's part of my own development path, and has taught me everything I know. And it's for me a real university of life, which I have been able to share. And maybe just one word to this question, whether climate change is, whether there are people who have other opinions on climate change and the carbon credit trade and so on. Let me be very clear. Huh? We never started SEKEM for climate farming or for CO2 certificates. We started SEKEM for human development and nurturing soils. And in the perfect world of tomorrow, we will never need carbon credits. We will never need CO2 certificates, because we will have consumers who are ready to pay a just price for the right product. And we are at the moment using the system to bridge the time until more people understand what we are saying. But we are not promoters of climate farming or CO2 emissions and CO2 credit trade. And we believe that all this justified issues of greenwashing and the doubts which are related to carbon trading are all understood and respected. But for me, currently seeing 40,000 farmers improving their livelihoods by doing a fantastic job on their lands using biodynamic agriculture, and through the carbon credits getting an income which allows them to send their kids to school and develop themselves, it's a justified tool at this time of our evolution. And I'm looking forward to a time where we not need all this stuff to work around the reality of the food system.
Agreed, 100%, Helmy. Well said. So, Helmy, what are some of the specific biodynamic practices that were practiced specifically on the land that you really feel woke it up and helped it in the healing process?
I mean, there are very different agricultural realities in Egypt, as I described. The one is reclaiming desert. Out of sand, create a fertile soil, living enriched with billions of microorganisms and a biome which is strong and healthy, to plant healthy crops and so on. For this purpose, the biodynamic preparation, whether it was the preparation of our composting and big quantities of this black gold for our farmers, the compost was a very important tool at the very beginning to create living soils. And the biodynamic preparations, whether the horn manure or the horn silica, have helped and proven to work fantastically in Egypt, in our climate, in our context, improving the vitality of our plants and their ability to create healthy seeds and yields. So from this side, I think we have proven that desert land reclamation is possible with biodynamics. But from the other side, we have these farmers who work on 5,000 years old fertile soils along the Nile. And for them, knowing that their problem at the moment is linked to dying soils, dying through chemical fertilizers, dying through pesticides, dying through salinity, which is related to all the issues of irrigation and water management and so on and so on, that for them, biodynamic compost, biodynamic preparations have also helped them to produce better crops, better yields with less water, and all this improvement of the soil, which in the end you can measure in carbon, because you can watch this carbon build up in your soil. And all this at rates that after 4, 5, 6 years, by the way, these farmers do not need carbon credits to have the same yields, cheaper produced, better economic results, so that even in the absence of a carbon market, they will still benefit from the system, and they can sustain through the carbon credits the transformation, but at a certain stage, after 4, 5, 6 years in this fertile soil, it just simply works. And the farmers, whether they are illiterate smallholding farmers or engineers who can read and write and everything, they all see this with their own eyes. And so biodynamic, it just works.
That's so cool. And so are you finding that the biodynamic compost is kind of like the entry point for introducing people and farmers to biodynamics?
I would say yes, it's the first and most convincing factor. Also, many of these, especially smallholding farmers in the Delta and many of their neighbors who see us spraying early morning or early evening, some of the biodynamic preparations come to us not for biodynamics or for anything, just asking for using the same stuff which we are using, because they can see their plants getting healthy and getting happy again. And so
Right.
it is compost, basically, yes, but also the immediate effect of the biodynamic preparations on the biome and on the plant health is something they can see.
Yeah, that's so powerful. What are you saying is the biggest challenge? Like, what was SEKEM's biggest challenge in the last 40 years or so?
I mean, it's twofold. Our inner challenge always was and will and is and will be to build our capacity, our ability to deal with all the challenges we are facing, and to be able to grow and to be able to develop new ideas, new products, new innovations. So building capacity in our learning living organization is the one thread which we are always trying to nurture with all this core program, with all the artistic and other development programs for our people.
Mm-hmm.
And from the other side, it's obviously the market and the current economic paradigms. So always being faced with this question, yeah, biodynamic is good and tastes nice and maybe it's healthy, but it's expensive. And I think after 100 years of biodynamic agriculture, we are celebrating, yes, but we have to also acknowledge that together with the organic movement, which evolved out of the biodynamic movement, by the way, we still only represent 2% of the world agriculture. And this is something which due to this wrong through cost accounting and so on, needs from us a lot of effort to turn it around and to prove that we are not only better and healthier and nicer and tastier, but also more efficient, more productive, and more profitable for our farms.
Mm-hmm. And how are we going to do that, Helmy?
As I said, at the moment, we are doing it by acknowledging the ecosystem services of our farmers. We have developed the carbon certification, but we are working now on biodiversity credits. We are working on water credits. We are working even on social credits.
And what has worked well? Like, what is something that you feel is really, really replicatable? Like, that you know that you could take to another community or another area of the desert and implement and see results?
I mean, beside what I have described as the biodynamic agricultural system which we have developed and which works and which, in the meantime, is well supported from the infrastructure side here in Egypt by the Egyptian Biodynamic Association and by advisors and by all kinds of experts who really help the farmers. But from the other side, I think it's also proving that our investment continues, which looks as if it's just expenses, additional expenses, and costs a lot of money, looks not productive and efficient, has yielded in high levels of self-motivation, in high levels of creativity and innovation power, so that in every single sector we are active in as SEKEM and as the biodynamic movement in Egypt, we are very competitive to the conventional economic system. We are market leaders in many segments. We are in 55,000 supermarkets and 35,000 pharmacies. We are in every home in Egypt with our products. And as I said, the competition is not sleeping, and they are multinationals, big multinationals like Unilever and Nestle. And still, by just investing into our people, investing into our community, we can reach better levels of productivity, higher margins, and higher levels of efficiency. And this, I think, is something which makes the difference for many companies in the world who want to survive.
Mm-hmm. And there's a question here from Leslie. How do you communicate that and teach consumers to look for and buy your products?
On our boxes, and you can see them on or in Egypt, we always speak about economy of love. We speak about these 4 questions. We show consumers where their product has been produced, from which farmer, who are the people involved. We are really trying to give them the information which they need to make an educated and we believe that many more companies in the world, in different schemes, different names, doesn't really matter, will go for more transparency and will give more information to consumers who will ask more questions in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Helmy had a question for you. What was it? It was so with the biodynamic preparations, I'm curious about the availability for all the things that you need to make some of the biodynamic preparations, and I'm wondering if you have had easy access to like the horns, manure, and all the different herbs and animal parts, or if you've made any modifications, and if you made the modifications, what have you done?
So we are working with the origin and content of biodynamic preparations. Most of the plants which are needed, we are cultivating in Egypt. Most of the animal parts we are getting from Egypt. We are doing actually thousands and thousands of silica and so on preparations for all of these farmers. But we are also thinking about the future, and so we are testing now homeopathic biodynamic preparations in a first big field trial. And obviously we are working with others together in Africa on some substitutions for those few animal parts and don't have local production. So we are working on the future of the biodynamic preparations. At the moment, we are still using the original ones. But for the homeopathic preparations, for example, are just unbelievable.
You're seeing amazing results with them.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Can you tell us what how a person would go about making the homeopathic solutions, or is that a bit early for that?
No. I think it's early. I'm happy to share with you what is the way we are cooperating with some researchers from Europe who went into this path. We are not starting from zero at the farm areas then for the spray. But I think this is a topic which needs a whole session and developing these new preparations.
Awesome. So maybe you can help me set that up.
Yes.
That would be fabulous. Thank you. What gives you the most hope about SEKEM's journey and where it is today and where it's headed?
I believe that, as I said, change is in the air. Everyone is acknowledging this change. Mm-hmm. Even at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where we are invited as social entrepreneurs, we can see that all these big companies, huge multinational companies like Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenta, Yara, and so on, are starting to question their own system, their current system. And even if it's still early, I'm not claiming that they are all in system change already, but they can see that it's not going to continue as it is. And so as I said, going to come, hopefully not only out of crisis, but also out of enlightenment and knowledge. For me, there is no doubt that we will see in the next decades huge steps towards a much more regenerative future than we have at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And what questions do you think we need to be asking ourselves right now as farmers and gardeners and who really are invested in planetary health and human well-being?
I mean, I can only speak for myself, and for us large, whether it's in the field of biodynamic farming or ethical finance or economy of love or whatever, it's really how can we translate into the language of the mainstream society, into the language of the people around us, so that we can help, without waiting for them to fully understand what we are doing, just having the courage to engage, to be ready to sacrifice our language for their language and engage with them and give them a chance to make the first steps.
So be it. Tell me more about that. What does that look like?
Vision for Egypt in 2057. You find them on our website. And in each one of the 16 SEKEM vision goals in all or the threefold order of society or whatever you want to call it.
So Helmy, one of the things I love about you is your passion for possibility. I feel like you really have the gift of seeing possibility. And if you want to come back on the camera to answer this, that would be awesome if you feel like it'll still work. So I'm curious, what drives that? What's inside of you that drives that vision and that energy? And what do you see?
I mean, we are the living example of what is possible. Huh? And we are, since 47 years now, creating a miracle in the desert. And basically what we have done was not developed by UN, United Nations, big development programs or whatever else and support, but it was done out of our own ideas, innovation power, enthusiasm, courage. And if it was possible in SEKEM, then there is no reason why it couldn't be possible everywhere else in Egypt, everywhere else in the world. So we strongly believe that we create the future we want to be, and we have confidence that we can impact system change. We can do crazy things, missions impossible, with a strong vision behind, of course, and with enough courage to move on your vision, even if you do not always know what this will lead to. So we are also really believing that we learn while we go, we learn, and our feet and hands can be much more intelligent than our brains very often. But we don't see real borders for our development, which we cannot handle. And with this confidence in our minds, we just believe that this is the biggest lever we have for system change at the moment. Believing in ourselves, believing in our ability to change things, and engaging and doing what we do. And by the way, then also having a lot of fun and joy and happiness.
Yes, yes. And biodynamics really embodies that. And sometimes some people think about biodynamics as the preparations or the compost or the doing. And then there's that anthroposophical side, which is more the spiritual side, which might embody some of what you're talking about. And I'm wondering how are you upscaling and enrolling farmers? You mentioned, they're curious about the biodynamic compost. And I'm wondering, is that really the entry, or is there something else that you're doing to actively enroll people?
This is a very interesting question, because we follow up on all of our developments with sociologists from our university to see what is the impact we achieve for rural development and social development, but what also is the motivation for our 10,000 farmers. Huh? And to be honest, I did believe when we started that our financial incentives improving their livelihoods, and we are speaking about people who are living at poverty, is the most important factor, entry factor. So just giving them a chance to improve their income 50% is a good argument, I think. And this is the reason why we don't have a big problem to find farmers who want to switch, because it's a no-brainer. You as a farmer, if somebody tells you go to biodynamics and sell it in the local market to whomever you did sell before at conventional price, and then you still will have a 50% higher income and do good things, this sounds nice. Huh? But I can tell you the last research we did last year in December with nearly 5,000 of them proved us wrong. The factor which was most important for our farmers was we are part of a community, we are seen, we celebrate together, we learn together, we love together, and so on. So believe it or not, it was not the money, which was the factor number one. It was being seen and being part of a community. So this shows you how Egyptian farmers look to the fact. I'm not claiming that this is the same in every country of the world, but I would suspect that this is, at least for many countries in the global south, a very important factor. Farmers are lost. Farmers are alone. Farmers are even insulted and not taken serious. And so giving them their pride, giving them their honor, and caring for them is very, very important.
So true, Helmy. And I think that loneliness is felt beyond the borders of your country, and I think that's a global experience. Even it's amazing how you can be in a city of millions and still feel alone, right? Like that's a common thread. And I also want to amplify that is a big part of the ethos of biodynamics, is being part of the community, being part of community with nature, with the people you're farming with and the people you're interacting with. It's like that living ecosystem, right? That pulse, that inhale and exhale of the earth, and noticing how we are all connected and all in community with each other. So I love that. What was that like when you had that understanding that was impacted and that they're looking for it and noticing?
We did more celebrations and more cultural activities with the farmers. We are now investing even consciously more in gathering them and giving them a chance to be seen and be and engage and learn from each other.
And tell me more about that. So what else are you doing?
We have, obviously, in all these villages and all these governorates all over Egypt, from Aswan to Alexandria, we have monthly programs. We have cultural programs where we enjoy together music, folk dance, or other things. We have training programs. We have built up, I think, one of the biggest participatory guarantee systems in the biodynamic movement. So all of our farmers are involved not only in biodynamic agriculture, but also in peer-to-peer reviews with other farmers, so they learn from each other. And so we are trying to search for all kinds of reasons to meet and come together and exchange.
Wow. I love what you just said, that you're searching for reasons to meet and how to exchange. And how can we do that better?
And how? Sorry?
How can we do that more and better?
I mean, I cannot speak for you in the UK. I can only say for us, we are seeing that the happiness of our farmers is increasing the more they meet. And with the happiness and enthusiasm, their capacity to do good things and to grow healthy and good plants. And so we, instead of meeting once per month, now we meet twice or 3 times or 4 times per month and so on. So it's obviously an investment into the network, into the community, but an investment which always also will pay back.
Mm-hmm. And Helmy, before we wrap up, I'm curious if anyone else has questions, pop them into the chat for us. So you have SEKEM as a community biodynamic community that you've built. It started off, how small was it when it first started off?
It was our family, my father, my mother, my sister, and myself. Yeah.
And how big is it today?
Now we have about 2,500 people working in different fields of the SEKEM community. We have about this 10,000 farmers who are connected to the SEKEM community. We have about 1,000 kids in different schools, SEKEM schools, and 3,000 students at the Heliopolis University studying organic farming and integrative health and social entrepreneurship and other bachelor and master and PhD programs. And as I said, we are in every single household. So we are also having many, many, many connections in the academic world, in the economic, different economic circles and so on.
So powerful. And so if somebody wanted to build something like SEKEM, where would they start? What would you say?
Again, I don't think that SEKEM or any model is a model to be replicated or to be copied. It just always needs to be contextualized. It needs to be evolving around the people who are developing it. So what I can give as an advice is, from the one side, draw a very strong leading image, a strong vision for how you want the world to look like if you succeed. And in 20 years, in 30 years, in 200 years, whatever you want to take as a time frame. So this is the one thing, a holistic vision which covers the societal part, the social part, the cultural part, the economic and ecological dimension. But from the other side, then you need to have people who are from all these different walks of life. A community you cannot create alone. You need teachers, you need entrepreneurs, but you need also researchers, farmers, physicians, and so on. So search for friends and colleagues who cover with you in a holistic way all dimensions of life. And then nurture your sources of inspiration, nurture your spiritual life. We are doing this every day since we are existing, every day in the morning. We come together in circles, and I think this is part of the miracle. But this has, again, to be different in every context. In the end, spirituality is reality as the table and the TV screen in front of me. Every idea, every emotion we have is a reality as much as every thing we have. And if you are convinced with this one, then you have to nurture and cultivate this side of the world to really inspire you for your daily work. And with this kind of inspiration and colleagues and a holistic vision, you then only need to have courage to do things, even if they don't look always logic and don't always look successful or whatever. Do the right things, believe in yourself, and then the miracle can come.
So be it. And Helmy, what does regeneration mean to you?
I mean, in our relationship to nature, I can't see protecting nature, sustainability being our ultimate goal. I think agriculture says it very beautifully. Agriculture means the interaction of human beings with nature in a way to also not only evolve the people, but also to evolve nature to a next level of existence. And regenerative agriculture is a good description of biodynamic agriculture, which really cares for this evolvement of the natural kingdoms.
And if you were to recap the last hour or so that we spent together, what would you most want people to have on their hearts and walk away with today?
The conviction that we can make an impact, the conviction that we are the future we want to be, the conviction that it's in our hands, and with our next deed and our next purchase decision and our next activity, we are creating the future.
Amen. We are. We are. Yes. Helmy, thank you so much. I feel like it's just such a gift to be in the room with you because I mean, for so many reasons, but I feel like I'm in the room with this old oak tree that's roots go down to the center of the earth and its leaves radiate up towards and beyond the heavens and the universe. And just in terms of how passionate you are about possibility and how passionate and intentional and directive you are about what is possible and how you really have modeled trusting that next step, even when it doesn't make sense, trusting nature's feedback and noticing what we're learning and what we're gleaning from nature and from the people and society around us, and how separate or different thoughts don't have to be a disconnection, but they can be a connection of how can we work together and how can we come together to create magic and to collaborate with nature and to really live in an economy of love. So I deeply appreciate you, Helmy. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to continue our exchange over the next weeks and months and years to come.
For sure, go and follow SEKEM at sekem.com, and on Facebook, there's the SEKEM group, SEKEM and on Instagram, it's the SEKEM_group. On YouTube, it's the SEKEM initiative, and go and check out some of their videos. They're absolutely extraordinary watching the transformation and listening to some of the stories.